We're recording.
Hey guys, welcome to the second edition of Geek Speak. And as you probably noticed, it wasn't a week later. We had planned on doing these weekly, but I guess I should say they're going to be sporadic but there'll be a couple of months when Meredith and I can get to it. We're both very busy writers. You see a lot of work on the Geek Insider website, but of course we also do a lot of work behind the scenes, and so there's a lot going on. But we have a great show planned for you guys today. A couple of things we want to talk about, some articles that have been covered on Geek Insider the last couple of weeks, and stuff that was kind of surprising, especially as I started digging into some of this stuff. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the worldwide hum, or they say the trumpet sound. And about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks, there was this big report across all news medias, CNN, Newsweek, MSNBC, everybody was putting it up, that scientists had discovered the reason for the hum. And immediately just light bulbs went off. And I was like, wait, what? And because this is something I've followed for quite some time. It was a phenomenon that tripped me out, because it does, man, when you hear some of these, if you're a religious person or you have any kind of religious background, some of it reminds you of, wow, that sounds like Gabriel's horn. You know what I mean, Meredith? The end times. But as I was looking, I found a lot of interesting stuff. This has been heard all over the world. And that's what bothered me, is the scientists were saying that they had pinpointed it to this island. And what it was is just the media was running with a story without doing any fact checking. There was no possible physical way that this one island was causing all the hums. And that's what I set out to do, was just to prove that statement was wrong. And after I had done the article, and I'll talk about what I found after we see this clip, it's something, this clip is like 4 years old, and well, just go ahead and play it, and then we'll discuss it.
The usual New York stuff, but today, I gotta say, New York took it up a notch, because an unholy wail started from the street that sounded like a goose making love to a smoke detector. I don't know if you guys heard it today. It was so unbelievable. The signature was so unbelievable, I recorded it with my iPhone. Jim? Now, I have no idea where that sound came from. My first guess was land whales. How about in desperation, they beached themselves on 53rd Street, and we were hearing them die. But then the sound stopped, and we thought, okay, well, we can write this part of the show. And then a few minutes later, we heard this.
So much. That's so funny.
I mean, could you imagine trying to write with that going on?
No.
I mean, I jam some music when I'm writing, and it drives my wife nuts. But I cannot imagine this. And let's go ahead and cut it off. The thing was, what I had found is they were, now this was 4 years ago, so it was before the year that the study was based on. They were looking at 2018. And as you can see, this sound has been heard. There's records going back at least 40 years of people hearing this sound. And so I looked specifically at 2018, and every single report that I found and videos of the hum, there was an earthquake right after the sound, whether it was a couple of days, couple of weeks, maybe even a month. And you know, these places were separated by thousands of miles, but I was very surprised that every single one that I looked at, there was an earthquake. Now, I haven't looked to see if there was an earthquake in New York after this one, but it had long been speculated that it could be tectonic plates rubbing together that's making the sound. And, you know, there could be instances from 2018 where there wasn't an earthquake afterwards. I didn't find any. Every single one that I looked up, there was an earthquake. People were, you know, I saw people on Reddit saying, well, to be scientific, you should go and find ones where there wasn't an earthquake. Well, that wasn't what I'd set out to do. I didn't even set out to find out what was causing the hum. It's just my investigation showed that there was an earthquake right around the same time. And so that was really interesting to me, especially considering that for a week, you know, the headlines were still going around. You'd still see it pop up in Facebook. You'd see it pop up in your news feed that scientists have discovered the reason for the worldwide hum. And really and truly, you know, right now, I'm of the opinion that it has something to do with the earth moving.
You know, Alan, watching the Stephen Colbert show, you know, that clip there with it's dated back 2015. And I was up in New York at the time, and I'm just trying to remember, because we do get earthquakes in New York. They're not like the ones in California.
Right.
But, so I'm kind of curious now. There might be something to your theory.
Well, I'm seeing that there was an earthquake in 2011 in New York, and I'm not seeing one for 2015. I'll just have to do a little more digging on that. I see a place that lists the earthquakes for the last 30 days in New York State, and they've had 4 quakes in the last 30 days. So that tells me that it's pretty active tectonic plates right there. I had found one in, it was the West Coast, I believe, Utah, maybe. Don't give me the line, it's in my article. But they've had a lot of videos of the hum. And I went and looked, and like in the last year, they had something like 300 earthquakes. And so, wow. Very, very active area. And so, again, just what forget the term for an educated guess, that word, not hypothesis, but whatever. It's an educated guess. And so if you hear the worldwide hum, like my article said, I don't think that it's Gabriel calling the end of the world. I think you probably ought to up your homeowner's insurance, take stuff off the shelves, you know, and just be careful. It'll be interesting because, of course, now going forward, anytime I see videos of the hum, I'm going to be watching to see if there's an earthquake in the area. And it'll definitely be interesting to see how the scientific community approaches this going forward. And so, pardon me, the next thing that we wanted to discuss is another one that surprised me going in. This is sex in comics. And, you know, I'm an avid comic reader. Didn't get into it until late in life. And unfortunately, I don't have enough time or don't take enough time to read them. I got a shelf full of graphic novels that I own and haven't cracked them open. They're perfect condition. And one of these days I'll take the time to read them. But anyway, I've seen, a lot of stuff in comics dealing with sex, but oh my God, I had no idea of the extremes that they go to in comics. We had a writer that several years ago wrote an article about the rape of Miss Marvel. I had no idea. That's a comic line I don't read. And of course, they don't talk about it in the Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, it was really weird. She's not only raped with mind control, but it's by her own son, technically, and then she ends up in love with him and goes off to live happily ever after, knowing that she was raped. It's the weirdest damn story ever. And what's bad is that it's not alone. I only looked at the big two, DC and Marvel. And I know there's a lot of comic lines out there. There's a lot of independents that I used to love back in the 90s. And so I know that there's a lot out there in those kind, and they get really freaky, but I didn't expect it from the big two, because those are the ones that though a lot of the storylines aren't really kid friendly, most of the titles are. You have to get into some of the off titles that really deals in the deeper stuff, especially when you get to Batman.
So the mainstream, I think, caters more towards your tweens and older, definitely, especially these days. But if you remember back when we were younger, remember heavy metal?
Oh yeah, they're redoing that.
Are they really? Oh my God, why not? But when heavy metal first came out, I think it was on HBO. That was when I was the remote control. Dad would smack me up the side of the head and go tell me to change the channel or something.
Right.
And
I think we're 10.
Just thinking, it's like, wow, that looks, because the graphics, the animation was amazing at the time. And, so we were getting ready to do family night, and my father was like, he basically saw a little bit of it and he's like, go to bed. We were
oh yeah,
like, wow. And, so that in comics doesn't surprise me, with the animation, illustrations and things like that. There's always been a lot of racy stuff, if you want to find it.
Yeah, but part of, guys, and I'm no prude by any means of the word. I actually used to work in a Howard Stern chat, and you can't offend me, but it just kind of surprised me, because some of these storylines, man, I could see, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, grandma, wanting to get a birthday present or a surprise for their kid. They see something on the shelf, a Green Lantern comic, and they grab it for their kid. And in Green Lantern, I found that Hal Jordan, back in the day, he was a pedophile, basically. He ends up hooking up with a 13-year-old girl, just because her ring, she's a lantern as well, Green Lantern, her ring power transforms her body because that's what she wanted. She's in love with Hal. And at first he's like, no. And then a couple of panels later, he's got his tongue down her throat. And the writers just kind of brush it off with the other superheroes. And, they say something like, she's not really had the time to mature. But she's like, oh no, my brain matured too. And it was just really weird, and because they touch on it, and it's just that one got me, just because I was like, how the hell did the publisher Marvel or DC on that let that go through? I mean, I could see a writer having a bad day and going down a bad storyline and going ahead and turning it in, but Jesus, just nobody said, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't have him with this 13-year-old. And then back over on Marvel, you got Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver hooking up. Hello, that's just, and because they love each other, it's okay. What kind of message is that telling kids? Hey, if you got the hots for your sister, it's all right. So and And like I said, I'm no prude, and those kind of storylines I wouldn't mind if it was in like I forget Marvel's Dark Print what they do for the adults, but DC had Vertigo for the longest time, and now it's changed to Black something. I forget, but if it was in that kind of line, but this was in your daily, your regular store, your regular runs, and it's just in the middle of a storyline that's been ongoing. And so I could just see people being unsuspecting. And I was really surprised that I hadn't heard of a lot of these, like the Batman, The Killing Joke. I had heard of that. I had watched the movie. I read the book years ago, and Joker is a bad guy. Never really focused in on that he raped Barbara. Always in my head, it was that he shot her, he handicapped her, and then that's how she ends up becoming the Oracle. And it never hit me that he raped her until I did this story. And this one is a little more expected. I mean, Joker's a freaking psychopath, man, and for him to because he's going after to break Gordon. That's his ultimate goal in this, is to break Gordon. It's kind of like the storyline from The Dark Knight when they do it with Harvey Dent, trying to push the good guy over the edge. Will he go crazy or will he go bad? And so that was part of the storyline. And so at the time, it didn't bother me. But like I said, it kind of glossed over the rape. But rape being covered in comics is one thing, but incest and running off with your son rapist from another dimension, that kind of stuff just makes you go, what?
Anything that leans towards illegal activity, whether it's screwing beasts or children, incest, those things, it's like so taboo. But here's the thing, those things exist, so I think there's a fine line between kind of expressing what happens in the real world or, just kind of staying in fantasy land. And I think the readers really need to be careful about what they're introducing to their kids, because, some might argue that it's indoctrination, into thinking that this is okay, and it's not.
Right.
Right. So, so there's like huge debates. And we could actually go political if you wanted to, with everything that's going on, especially with like Epstein and, Harvey Weinstein, Weinstein. Yeah. So it makes you kind of wonder, like, what the hell is going on? I don't want to speculate, but I can't help it.
Right. And, you always expect comics to mirror real life. It always has. Back in the 40s, you had, Captain America and Superman both beating the hell out of Hitler. And during the 60s, Stan was, putting the hippies in there, and the civil rights marches and everything made it into comics. And so, I can see, it mirroring it a lot. But like the story with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, that one to me crossed the line because they kind of normalized that incestuous behavior. When they have Wolverine watching, if Wolverine had come out and was like, what the hell are y'all doing? And lectured them on it, then that would be one thing, but he didn't. And so it was just kind of a weird storyline. And, afterwards, some of these writers have come out against the storyline, like, I almost said Alan Daniel, Alan Moore. He came out against the storyline on Miss Marvel, I believe it was. And, anyway, one of the storylines. But anyway, the whole thing is yes, there's a tasteful way to mirror life and to bring that stuff in. There was a Batman comic that specifically dealt with child trafficking and child sex trafficking, but it was a graphic novel, a standalone, and that kind of thing, I expect to be older, geared towards older people, but just not in the mainstream comic, the regular Green Lantern or the regular X-Men or Captain Marvel, any of those. Save it for the right places where you can put that label on there to warn grandma before she goes and picks up that comic. And that's all I got to say about it. And anything else that you wanted to say on the comics?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, I think wasn't it Stan Lee who said something about, I'm definitely paraphrasing, and I might this might not be even a real memory, who knows? But when you were talking about how our superheroes were battling the bad guys, the real bad guys, taking down Hitler and Captain America, World War II, and all that stuff. So comics have a place in our society as I want to say kind of a propaganda arm, and they are the speakers of truth. I want to say, much like our comics, our comedians,
Right.
Whereas if they find humor in the nastiness that's going on, because we can all relate to it. But I think you're right when it comes to kind of sneaking in those unexpected things where I have to question the editor and go, why was that? Did that actually push the story forward? Or
Right.
what kind of messaging are you really trying to tell us? So I kind of, thinking deeper into that, it makes me really wonder. And now I'm curious. Now I have to go out and buy these things and look for myself. And
Right. Well, and these guys are our modern myths. There are Greek gods, for back in the day. And the biggest reason that I got into comics is because I'm a reader. I like stories and I like stuff that is unique. And so I like a good unique storyline, especially, I mean, I love Batman because Batman isn't a superhero. He's a Superman, basically. He uses his mind and gadgets and to fight these crimes, and he's beat Superman, so with his mind. He's the world's greatest detective. And whereas on the flip side of that, I love Logan, just because he's the best at what he does. And Berserker Logan I've seen myself in that so many times. But there are Greek gods, and comics are flourishing again. With the movies that have come out, the comic book stores are doing nicely again. Whereas in the late 90s, early 2000s, they started crashing. They were closing all over the place. The market had been flooded with 5 variants of every issue that came out, and then it crossed over into 9 different other titles if you wanted to follow the storyline, because they were trying to get you to buy everything. And at first we all did. We give it, and then we were like, wait a minute, this thing went down in value for one thing. I can't get no money out of this. And the storylines suffered. But like we said, we're going off on several tangents here on the comics, but it'll be interesting, like you said, to go and grab some off the shelf now and see where they're going with some of these storylines, because with today's age, there may be a whole lot more stuff in there that we're just not aware of. Because back in the 90s, I used to probably, when Tuesdays, I think that was comic day, I probably every week had 9 to 15 titles that came in. And that's a good way to go broke, for one thing. But these days I'm down. I don't even have a subscription. I did have a Batman subscription up until about 9 months ago. But my thing is now is I like the graphic novels, because I can sit down and I can read a complete storyline in one. But it'd be interesting to go read some of the single titles, just pulling one out of the run and seeing where they're at with it and what they're doing these days. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about was a surprise to me, and it was one of those woohoo moments. Started looking around the other day, and I saw that Sony is not only planning an expected sequel for the Transformers, they're actually planning on 2. And I knew that the one had been in the works, but I didn't know anything about it. And I just assumed it was going to be either a Bumblebee sequel or just another one with Optimus Prime. And no, It's Beast Wars, Optimus Primal. This one, man, this really is what got me into Transformers. As I said in my article the other day about it, growing up, I had some redneck cousins, and if you showed any kind of geek leaning, you got good punches to the arms, you got called all kinds of names, and so you hid those predilections, those desires, and so late in life, after I had kids, that's when I could start letting my geekness show. And my kids used to wake me up, Daddy, Ninja Turtles is on, or Daddy, X-Men's on. And so I'd go in there and watch it with them. And Beast Wars came out, and it was computerized computer animation. And at first I was like, man, what the hell? But then I started watching it and getting into the storyline, and I loved it. And I had been waiting for a remake or something to happen. And if this is going to be live action Beast Wars, count me in, man. Have you seen Beast Wars, Meredith?
Now there was one that came out in, when was it? A few years ago, right?
I'm not real sure if they they may have done a Beast Wars animated movie. The one I'm talking about, it came out in the early 2000s, I think. I forget the date. And it only lasted 3 seasons, but you had, the dinosaur, you had the Cheetor, and so they take on, they crash land on a planet that's like Earth, 2,000 years ago or whatever, how many ever thousands it was with the dinosaurs. But there's all kinds of beasts there. And of course, as the Transformers, take on something to hide, like when they land on Earth, they do machines. Here there are no machines, and so they take on the animals. And there's an over and abundant energy supply there, and something that they have to hide, be transformed into their beast. I forget the whole storyline.
You want to play that?
Sure.
All right, hold on a second. Let me just pull that up here. Hold on 1 second. Let me remove that there.
See, I'm all about that. The gorilla, the big gorilla, that's Optimus Primal, and he's the leader of the Maximals. They're not Autobots; they're Maximals. And then you have the Predators is the bad guys. And like I said, it only lasted 3 seasons, but it was really cool. And I haven't even watched it to see if it holds up, how some of those things are. You watch them years ago, they're great, and then you rewatch them, kind of like the Dark Crystal. Loved it as a kid. Nowadays, I'm like, what the hell? How did I ever like that show? But yeah, this one I'm excited about because, good God, look! I remember as a fanboy going in to see Transformers the movie for the first time, and hearing Optimus's voice and the whole changing and the fights when they're in the jets and transforming in the air. I mean, all that stuff. I felt like a little kid seeing Star Wars for the first time. And so this I'm really excited for. The other thing that they are doing, which there's not a lot of news on yet, and is that a Bumblebee, a sequel that's in the same universe as Bumblebee. So we don't know if it's still Bumblebee back in the 80s or if it's some other storyline set back in that time. Bumblebee was the lowest grossing Transformers movie so far. Not to say that it didn't make money, it just didn't make as much money as they wanted. But so it'll be interesting to see what they do. Bumblebee's a big draw. He's next to Optimus, he's the most recognized Transformer, I think. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Hopefully, sticking back in the 80s, it gives them a lot of opportunity for nostalgia and to do different storylines. But Beast Wars, that could open up a whole new franchise, man. It just depends. I don't know if kids these days are familiar with Beast Wars.
I don't think they are. I really don't think. I don't know.
And so it'll be really interesting, especially to see how they promote it. Do they promote it for months in advance, showing the badass beasts transforming and battles and stuff? So there's going to be a lot to it. And he's been writing on it. I forget the guy's name. I ain't got my article up, but he's been writing on it since April of last year, or he's been at least attached to the project since then. And so hopefully there's been some good writing sessions. They've hashed some things out. I'm not sure if it's going to be Michael Bay directing it or who it's going to be, but hopefully they get a good director with the same vision, and they go back and watch some of the old shows and forget the cheesiness of the computer animation and just go, aha, this is a good little storyline we could do here. But there's not that much news out there. This could now I have to caveat this could be speculation because there's nothing official from Paramount. This is just some stuff I found from sniffing around, but it does seem legit. And so hopefully we are on our way to seeing some Beast Wars. And what is your favorite franchise, geek franchise, that has come out in recent years or decades? Do you like the action? Do you like the superheroes?
Well, I think when it comes to like Transformers, I watch it. I love action movies and things like that. I love the superheroes, the Avengers, that whole syndicate of movies. I enjoy the action. But I have to admit that when Transformers came out with how do you say his name? Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, there was just so much CGI that it was really hard for me to watch. So the storyline really had to carry me through, and for the most part, it did. But it was just a lot of eye candy. But I'm a storyteller. I like the story more than I like seeing the action on the screen. So Transformers, I can take it, I can leave it. I mentioned this in our first video. I'm really looking forward to Black Widow.
Right.
I haven't really done any sniffing around for any of the other ones. But one of the things, and this is probably going to be a sneak peek for Geek Insider, is that I personally, going towards the more, I want to say the female geek, I personally love the originals and their spin-off legacies. So this is a series of articles that I plan on writing for anybody who's not familiar with those series, to have little clips about it, and have every one of them is going to be a spoiler for that particular episode. But it'll introduce you guys to, our geek girls into a different series, and hopefully we'll branch out into other movies and other series and things like that.
Very cool. Very cool. And, I'm the exact same way. I like a good storyline. And so I don't have to have action. Don't get me wrong. I love a good action movie. I own all the Rambos, all the Die Hards, and, I watch them religiously. And I'm a big action fan, but it's the story that draws me in, and a unique story will always be a plus in my book. And that's why I like some oddball stuff. I've got some oddball movies in my collection because the storyline just grabbed me. Peanut Butter Falcon was one that, the title just doesn't sound like something you'd enjoy. And
I don't think I would watch it just on the title.
Well, let me tell you, watch it. It is an absolutely wonderful movie. It's Shia LaBeouf is in it, actually. and you might change your mind on him. It's just came out not too long ago. It's a really good movie. But as far as favorite movies go here recently, this is not a franchise yet, but it's going to be. And it was slated as just being a one shot. And of course, I'm talking about Joker. Joker, when they advertised it, this is a one shot. It's separate from Batman, and it's in its own little universe. When I saw it twice within the same week, and I wrote about it. And I said at the time that they were crazy if they didn't do a sequel on this. And I said at the time, what I'd love to see is more origins set in this universe, like Penguin, the ventriloquist, Riddler. Do those origins and maybe have Joker influence those guys as far as where their origins go, and or they meet in Arkham and they break out. I mean, there's so many storylines you can do. And now they have announced, of course, there's going to be a sequel because, I mean, it made so much money. He's already won all these awards. He's going to walk away with some Oscars this week. And so, I knew that they were crazy. I've already seen it 4 times now, and somehow I ended up getting it early on digital before it even was coming out. The gods must have just said, he likes it so much, give it to him. And so I've watched it 4 times, watched it with a director commentary.
Wow.
And so that by far is my favorite, most recent one.
Well, let me ask you something real quickly, Matt. Have you ever watched or read an origin story that came after the fact that ruined the entire thing for you?
Logan.
Have you ever? Oh, really?
Yeah, I know Wolverine. I loved Logan. I have a big poster of Logan, is why I keep looking whenever I say Logan. I have a very expensive movie poster. It's vinyl. It's not paper, and then I got it encased in glass, nice frame. I spent a lot of money on it. And then I've got another one that has him and X-23 together, all bloody. I love it. But when Wolverine came out, or The Wolverine, I watched it first because I don't know if you remember, they came out with a stolen copy before the CGI was added. And I was so excited for it. I watched it without the CGI. And then I regretted it. But then it was okay, and it was still exciting, I have to say that. But they just screwed up so much because I'm a huge Logan fan, and they just took too many liberties for me. I won't watch it. My wife enjoys it. I do like the opening montage with him and Sabretooth running through the wars and all that. I did love that montage. But the movie itself, thankfully, they fixed it 2 movies later. They didn't really fix it in the next one. But Logan, I love that movie. That's another one of the storyline got me. There's not a lot of action in it. There's some, but not a lot of action. But that storyline and the acting in it, Patrick Stewart, my God,
just an amazing actor anyway. It doesn't matter what you put in it.
Speaking of, and then we'll wrap it up. I haven't had a chance to see it yet. If anybody gives me spoilers, I'm going to pee down your chimney. But Picard has started. And I'm hearing nothing but good stuff. People saying, watch it. But, it's another streaming service. I have like 6 of them right now. And so I'm waiting for a few episodes to get in there. If not all of them, I may get it and then binge watch it. But I'm super excited to see him in Picard, man. That is just an iconic role, the same as Professor X, Professor Xavier. It is an iconic role. I'm a huge geek, and so I love Star Trek, of course. I did an article here a while back battling Star Trek and Star Wars, and I'm in the middle there. I do like Star Wars a little more, but I love Star Trek, seen every movie at the theater. Mm-hmm. And so for Picard to be back, man, I just hope that it isn't like Disney. Disney roped me in with Mandalorian, and then there hasn't been anything else good since then. Nothing that, I have all the movies that I want to watch, all the Avengers and the Star Wars and stuff. So right now I'm waiting, come on with some more series. And the same with CBS All Access. They got Picard, but do they have anything else that I'm going to use it for after that 8 or 10 episodes, whatever it is? And I think that's one thing that the streaming services, they're all jumping in. Oh, we've got this 2 shows, but then it's going to be a year before we have anything else new.
That's so maddening. I hate when they do that.
Yeah, and so I'm already
breaks. That drives me crazy.
Oh my God, yes.
Like, just because you sound like me, binge watching.
Yep.
I will wait so that I have a good chunk of time. It could be a 4-hour chunk of time. It could be an all-day thing, but I will sit there and I will binge watch, and I will literally stay on the couch and watch it. And people know, because I don't do that very often. So when I binge watch, my husband keeps me in stock with coffee, and he asks me if I want a snack, because he knows this is my time off and I'm enjoying it, because I want to see that story arc. It's going back to that. I love seeing what's going to happen next. That conflict, the resolution. All of that stuff. So to see those mini story arcs within one episode is just not enough. You know?
And on both of those points, the mid-season break and binge watching. I went to the Comic-Con in Austin and the Wizard World Con, and I got to go to they did it as a premiere, but it was a episode of Evil on CBS. And it was like the 3rd or 4th episode, but it got me. I was like, this is an interesting storyline. And so I came home. Huh?
Evil?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So you've watched it?
I've been watching that, yeah.
Yeah. And so I came home. I didn't tell Brenda about it. Brenda's my wife. I just put it in, the first episode. And before the opening, they do the scene, 5-minute scene or whatever, and then they'll do the credits. When that started, she goes, okay, I'm hooked, because that opening scene where they're setting everything up, it was just right up both of our alley. You got religion, occult, science, all 3 brought in, and that's the kind of way we like to look at things. Something catches our eye and we're like, hey, wait a minute, we try to look at it scientifically. But anyway, lots of stuff going on, guys. We went a little bit longer than what we had planned today, but lots of good talk. We will see you guys probably, I'll say next week, but we'll see you here when we see you.
We'll see you when we see you.
Yep. But otherwise, be sure you're checking out. Oh, that's another thing, guys. I'm sure if you're here, you've already seen the new look of geekinsider.com, but we do have a new look. We've got a lot of new content coming out daily, and I'm bringing on other writers to help keep things going fresh. And so keep your eye out. We've got a lot of exciting things planned. If you are a cosplayer or someone that is, tell them to reach out to me at Matthew at geekinsider.com. We've got something going on that we're going to launch, and we want to contact every cosplayer out there.
Get your superhero suit on.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a great week and stay geeky.